Okay. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to check after. It's the Viral Style website is on the CRU website, so republicansunited.org. Go buy our shirts because it gives us money. Present, share screen. Okay. So this is going to be the last online meeting for the semester, hopefully. After this, we are going to be moving in person back to BAC 116, which is on the south side of campus. There are going to be new rules. You know, you have to wear a mask, you have to social distance, all that stuff. But I don't agree with it, but it's just getting to the point where I want to be able to meet in person with you guys. So I'm willing to do anything. There is also going to be contact tracing where as a student, when you walk in, you have to give your name, email, and phone number in case one of us gets corona. ASU can contact all of us and quarantine us. So if you don't like that, I think we're going to be doing Zoom meetings also. So if you feel sick or something like that, you can come through the Zoom meeting. I can probably guarantee you that the first week it's going to take some time to figure out just because the Zoom is connected to the classroom and it's going to take some time to figure that out. But after that, should be good. Okay. Works. Here we go. Okay, so I am appointing a new vice president today. Mische, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, everyone.
The background, Mische. That's good. So Mische is going to be our new vice president until the November elections. Do you have anything you want to say? Introduce yourself, Mische.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a first-year freshman this year studying supply chain management. I got involved with CRU back over the summer, working for the McCarthy campaign where Julie and Rick were also working at the time. We did a lot of good work, partially fighting against the Republican Party itself, which kind of sounds crazy, but I'm sure you all know the conflicts there. And so it was really eye-opening to see everything throughout McCarthy's campaign, the way he was treated by both sides. And then Julie and Rick mentioned that they had the College of Republicans United, and that, you know, definitely more on the conservative side, no rhinos and nothing like that. And so that was kind of what got me interested. And I'm hoping to kind of help us retain that image and keep our club pure Republicans, I guess.
Woohoo! Yay, Mische. Yeah, so he'll be with us until November, and then I'm sure he'll be running for something else. For everybody else, I know we probably have a lot of new people, so I'm just going to go over these rules again. We do have club elections in November. It's usually going to be like the last meeting of the semester. So if you are interested in running, you need to be eligible. And to be eligible, you need to do two of these three things. You need to pay dues, which is $10, or you can buy something off of Viral Style, which has shirts, flags, hats, even though we found out the hard way, don't get the flags. They're really cheaply made and they're only single-sided. Minimum of 6 hours volunteering, just volunteering for different candidates or for CRU. Last night we had a group of about 5 of us walking around campus putting up CRU flyers. So that counts as an hour of volunteering. So just stuff like that. And then attend 4 meetings. So this is our 3rd meeting right now. So people are going to have next week, if this is your 4th time attending next week, you'll be set in that aspect. And then the next one, okay, so let me figure this out 1 second. Sharing options. I just changed the sharing, so you should be able to turn it on. Let me know if it works.
Y'all tell me if it works.
Okay, yes.
All right, well, just put it in full screen mode. Is it still looking good?
Yes.
All right, so hi everyone. My name is Eber Toscano and I'm currently a sophomore at ASU. I wanted to start, I'm going to talk about what life was like in Mexico, but before we do that, I wanted to start with something I read this afternoon. And you're going to see why I feel strongly about this in a minute, but it was a tweet by Joe Biden 5 hours ago. And it said, weapons of war have no place in our communities. And then he talked about when he was a senator, he put a 10-year ban. And then he says that when he's president, he'll ban these weapons again. So, I have a huge problem with that. And basically, you're going to see why once I talk about what I went through in Mexico. So where I grew up was practically Ciudad Juárez. And if you've ever heard of Ciudad Juárez, it's literally a border town. It's like crossing the border of like El Paso. And this is what I kind of want to give a warning of what I'm going to talk about. My normal is not necessarily other people's normal. So some of the things might be a little disturbing. I'm not going to talk about anything like gore or show any gory pictures, but things can be upsetting. And I know we're not snowflakes up in here, so I think we should all be good. Let me just throw this out there, but Mexico really makes ISIS look like a Disney movie. And gosh, from the things that I've seen, and I've seen some like ISIS videos and all, and I was like, I mean, they have some good quality, I'm not gonna lie, but Mexico is just another deal. As a Mexican, I personally support Trump, and you're gonna see why here. So have you ever heard of Lexit, the Latino Awakening, Latinos Exit the Democratic Party? Well, I joined that like 3 years ago. I left the Democratic Party like 3 years ago. My actual first protest was against Trump in 2016. So part of like being a man, at least what I believe, is admitting where you're wrong. I did not know anything about politics. Let me just tell you, I was like ignorant. Like you could ask me like, oh, what do you hate about Trump? And I'll just say, oh, the media, the media tells us to. I guess he's racist. I wouldn't know anything about his policies. So I admit I was that ignorant back in the day, but I've made a change for the better. So this is exactly where Ciudad Juárez is in terms of like geographically, and El Paso is like literally like right up there, and Ciudad Juárez is right there. So kind of like the environment that I grew up in, it's not the prettiest place. This is very, very, very poor. And although I'm very fond of where I'm from, it's kind of like my normal, and it doesn't really bother me because I'm used to it. But this wasn't the problem. The problem was the narcos. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about my experiences with like narcos and why exactly, I support Trump, why like I don't like people messing with my guns. We like our guns, we like our Second Amendment. Proud to be an American. I'm glad I was born here. I was fortunately raised over here because Obama sent us back. Obama administration was pretty horrible. And so a little more on the environment that I grew up in. So on the left, we have a picture. This is like when you're crossing the border, this is one of the bridges that you have to cross. And there's always something going on. So this is just like the Mexican police or like the military just guarding it. And I've heard a lot of stories of having like high-end mafia bosses, like, cross like nothing. Because they're really rich and they have some border patrol agents like in their pockets. It's absolutely terrible. But on the right here, we have the cartel that caused most of like, I guess, my pain and suffering. These are the guys that made everything hell. These are called losetas. And if you look at the kinds of guns that they have, do they look like, are they like normal pistols? Do you think they're scary? These are actually better weapons than the military itself has. And I mean, can you imagine the cops they got these guns, but these guys got 50 cals. They got all kinds of high-end weapons. They have gun piercing armor. They even have a gun. It's a pistol called the cop killer. In Spanish, it's called the mata policías, but they have all kinds of things. And Mexico actually banned guns. And how is that working for them? It's not working so well. But these guys, I don't know if you recognize this guy here in the bottom. That's El Chapo. So they call him El Rápido. That's what the Colombian cartels called him because he was really fast at moving his product. And the reason he was so fast is because he discovered tunneling. And I guess in Juárez, where I was from, I always heard things of like the tunneling routes. And this is the way that they would smuggle cocaine, amphetamines, all that stuff into the United States, particularly El Paso. And here in this picture, we actually have Amado Carrillo Fuentes. He was known as the Lord of the Skies. So I don't know if there's actually like a TV series about him, The Lord of the Skies. He's kind of like the guy who founded the cartel of Juárez. And I mean, he eventually, I think he died in 97, but that guy was revolutionary because, I mean, he's called the Lord of the Skies for a reason. He would import, or not import, he would take all his drugs, all the cocaine, like kilos of cocaine from Juárez to the United States through plane. And we're talking about a lot of coke. So he revolutionized like the skies with all of this. And it really made Juárez, where I grew up, a living hellhole. And then El Chapo came in and he decided to want to take over the territory, he was successful. So this was during like 2008 and 2010. And this is where everything I'm going to talk about in this following slides, this is what it's going to be about and what El Chapo did for us, really. But before we get there, I want to talk about a recent event that happened. I don't know if anyone recognizes this. This was in El Paso, August 3rd of 2019, so literally kind of like a year ago. So his name was Patrick, and he went from Dallas all the way to El Paso to shoot up the Walmart there. He killed, I think, 23 people. So this guy was an actual racist. And, you know, I have experienced a little racism, but let me tell you who I've experienced the more racism coming from. I don't know if you want to guess, but it's other liberals, and especially liberal Mexicans or liberal Hispanics that call me like a wetback imposter. They call me a Tío Tom, which is Uncle Tom, but like in Spanish. Call me all kinds of things, you know, sellout and all that stuff. And I've heard of a couple of things like we speak like from I guess like Americans, you know, like, oh, we speak English, and it doesn't really bother me. But this guy was like an actual racist, and he only went to the Walmart to shoot up people. And we actually knew some of these people, which was, you know, absolutely terrible. But they throw around the word racism nowadays, and it makes these guys, you know, it's so overused now. It kind of loses their value. So when there's an actual racist that does these kinds of heinous acts, not just like, oh, Mexico sending their rapists and all that. I mean, I personally didn't find that racist because it was kind of true, but this was just absolutely terrible. I want to share just a few stats on how exactly dangerous, like how dangerous Mexico is from. So there's something called like the war on women that we know is that femicides. And actually, like in 2016, 7 women were killed every day. Like we're talking like per day. And these were all either like domestic violence, it was like they were being trafficked, and it was just all kinds of things, even if it was just to send a message. But the thing about this is that authorities made no effort to solve the cases. And actually from 2008 and 2012, I mean, that was of course the Obama administration, but that was the time where I was sent to Mexico and I was living there. Juárez was known as the most murderous city in the world. It was always in the top 10 charts each and every one of these years between 2008 and 2012. It was actually number 1 a lot of these years. So not a pretty city. In just like 2019, but it still really hasn't changed. It's still very dangerous. We had 1,500 murders in 2019. And right now, like it was reported like in July, we had about 1,000 reported deaths. And these are not COVID related deaths. These are murders. Like cartels are taking advantage of all these, I guess, like the government is not really focusing on stopping them. They're focusing on like, oh, let's get medical supplies here and there. Let's attack the coronavirus. And so these guys are taking advantage of that to import as much coke and marijuana into the US. And that's happening in Juárez because it's a border city. 98 to 99% of these murders go unsolved. So, you know how everybody was freaking out when CRU set up the donation for Kyle Rittenhouse? Well, you know, the reason I feel so strongly about that is because I really believe in our justice system. I come from a justice system where 99% of the murders go unsolved. So when there's something going on here in America, I really hope there is some due process and that they get, you know, they get the lawyer and all that. So all these people freaking out about like, hey, like, yeah, he's a murderer and all that. They haven't even waited for the trial. They don't even wait for the facts. And we know this from you get those really edited videos from like they'd see on Twitter, and it's basically like a 5-second video of a cop shooting a guy, but then they leave out the context, like the other 30 seconds leading up to that, which is like the guy attacking, pulling out a gun, any of those things. So yeah, right here in Ciudad Juárez, that's absolutely terrible. We have no faith in our justice system. We don't respect the police, and they're actually pretty much bought. We've seen them like carry out executions for the cartels. So it's not pretty whatsoever. This pink cross is actually like, if you're crossing the border, like if you're going from Mexico to US, they have this pink cross and all that. And it's just like a little tribute to all the women that go missing here. So when I hear people here saying like, oh, women in America are so oppressed and blah, 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 I would like them to go to Mexico and see what it's really like. And maybe they'll learn to appreciate America a little more. I know I have, since I've lived in this place, but next thing is really why I support strong borders, the wall. So here I just included this image of if you want to see cartel influence and, their smuggling routes and all that. It's literally all over the place. But basically, cocaine comes from Colombia. And everything, like all kinds of drugs, like methamphetamines, the amphetamines, marijuana, meth, and all that traffic goes through the border towns. So here's Juarez, here's El Paso. We got Douglas, Arizona. We got, the border city of that is like either Nogales or like Agua Prieta. We got Tijuana and Mexicali. All of these things are coming through the border. And I at least like the worst thing I've seen, like here on the top right, we have a picture of like, they had kilos in a tire. This is not the worst I've seen. Me personally, the worst I saw was they hid kilos in corpses, and a little disturbing, it was baby corpses. So they, put makeup on them and make them look like they were asleep. And that was just absolutely terrible and horrifying. But these people they don't care, like they're ruthless, and they're gonna do whatever they can to get the products across the border. They go as far as to buy Border Patrol agents, a lot of Border Patrol agents, and thankfully even like ICE, they stop a lot of this. Border Patrol agents that are good and are on our side, that are not bought in the pockets of these super wealthy men. Well, they stop a lot, but there's only so much you can do, right? We're talking about like millionaires, mafia bosses who have tons and tons of money, who could just really buy anyone. But they threaten their families as well. They're like, hey, if you don't let me get this truck across the border with tons of cocaine, then we're gonna murder your family. So what can you really say? I mean, are you gonna say no and risk having your family wiped out? They're not bluffing. They mean this, and they've done it before. On the bottom right corner, we've always had like caravans. I think last year we had a caravan of people coming from Honduras, like Central America. And they were all in the border town, and they're trying to get to the United States. A lot of these people, when I went to Mexico, I would see a lot of MS-13 members, like these guys. So when Trump was talking about like, hey, MS-13 members, we have people that are rapists and, the worst kind of people coming from Mexico, he wasn't lying. And I don't know why nobody covers this. Like the media doesn't cover this, and I'm just here to tell you like it's freaking true. I see these people on a day-to-day basis. Every time I cross, I see these people right there, and it's absolutely terrible. I've been almost jumped by these guys. They try to corner you if you look rich. I look white, so they're like, oh, there's a gringo, attack him, even though I'm Mexican. Luckily, I got away, but you guys are the worst of the worst. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about the people that I know that cross the border. And by the way, Julie and Rick, whenever I'm hitting that mark, since I'm not, I'm just talking over here, let me know like, hey, you got like 5 minutes or whatever. But I want to tell you a little more of the people that I personally know cross the border. So this is kind of like unexpected. You would think most of these are going to be like males and all that, but there's actually some women in my neighborhood. We call them cats, and the reason we call them cats is because they look like cats. Like, they're very attractive. They have like super perfect factions. They have colored eyes. They look European, but they're Mexican, and we call them cats. There's a lot of them, and we swear they have 9 lives because they've tried to kill a lot of them, and they just don't die. But these women, so these are very, very attractive women. And what they do is that they were born in America. Their parents crossed and they had them in America. And they did that so they can have an advantage. And so we're talking about like 5 of these girls. There are a lot, and each one of them has like a brother. So it's a huge family. But what the girls do, since they're so attractive, is that they cross the border, and they can do it because they're American citizens. And they go to bars, and they hook up with men. They bait them. And so since they're super attractive, men are not going to say no. You know, they think, oh, I just scored myself a really hot lady. Well, they get drugged, and then they get robbed. And I mean, these are men with families, and this is the sole purpose. This is the only reason that they go to America. And I don't talk to them because my grandma tells us that they're the devil. And with everything that they do, I don't really want to get associated with them. I just know who they are, and they're from my neighborhood. And I know that's the reason they crossed the border. Next thing is trafficked children. So you've ever seen those pictures of children in cages and liberals crying out like, oh my gosh, they're separating from their families. Well, what if I tell you that I know that a lot of coyotes, the coyotes are the people that sneak illegals into the country. They call them coyotes. I know that a lot of the children that they cross, they pair them up with an adult, and they tell them this is going to be your parents or blah blah blah. They're not. They're actually going to be trafficked. So they only assign them an adult so that they think that they're parents, and then once they're in America, they have someone pick them up, and then they sell them, and they traffic them, and it's a whole mess. But that's the reason why ICE and why Border Patrol separates them, because you got to verify. Well, that's one of the reasons that I know of, is because they got to verify that they're actually their parents, because there's a lot of instances where they're not, and they're being trafficked, they're being sold, or they're being trained to be narcos, sicarios. Actually, right now, since El Chapo's in jail, the strongest cartel member, the most powerful mafia boss right now, his name is El Mencho, and his advantage is that he grew up in America. So since he grew up in, I think, San Francisco, he knows how America works. So that's why he's so powerful right now. So they send a lot of these kids to kind of like learn how America works, learn the laws, learn how things function, infiltrate, and then work for the cartels. And it's not, it's why I love my Border Patrol. I really support ICE. If they ban ICE, the sex trafficking and the children being trafficked is gonna skyrocket. I promise you, it's gonna be terrible. So I say build the wall. So now we're getting into like my specific neighborhood. So here's my neighborhood. So I wanted to share just a little bit of stories. I blurred out the bodies because I didn't want anybody to see that. But here in this top left corner, this is like literally down the street. Here we have had 3 murders that I know of. 15-year-old, the 15-year-old is this body here. Recently a woman, because in one of these corner houses, they sell weapons. They have a stockpile of weapons. And so someone found out that they were working with the other cartel, and so they massacred them. And they leave signs, we heard them, it was like at 6 a.m, we heard the gunshots, and they leave signs, they put up like posters, and they say, this is what's gonna happen to anyone who works with this cartel. But that's not the only thing they leave. They leave their heads, they leave their dismembered bodies, and of course we don't know the bodies are there, so when we're walking to the store and we see them, you're gonna get traumatized. You're not used to seeing people's heads chopped off, just like in the street. Unfortunately for me, it's kind of become a normal. I'm not used to that because I don't know who can get used to that. I don't think anybody can, but it's just absolutely terrible what happens here. In this hill that you see up here, one of the cats that I was telling you, that they have 9 lives and they never die. He was laying there and he had a knife stuck in his neck, and he didn't die. His eyes were like wide open. He has like blue eyes, but there were dirt on him. We saw he was dead. The point is that next week we saw him with like he had gone to the hospital and all that. But we were children and we were playing tag, and that was the safe space. We thought he was dead, but we were using him as, oh, you can't tag me because I'm in the safe space. We call it ginkies. And so we would play around dead bodies all the time. It's not my best memory now that I think about it, now that I reflect. So here's an actual picture someone in our neighborhood took with a drone. So I don't know how they got a drone, but they got a drone, and because we wanted to see what was going on. This is, I blocked up the body, but it was a 15-year-old, like we're talking 15, teenager. He was caught he was not in the, I guess, like the right steps. He was not following the right steps. He was not in a good path. And this is the unfortunate reality with teens in where I'm from. And this is where I grew up on. This is like the house that I grew up in. And if you see, there's a wall there. We build walls in Mexico to keep other Mexicans away. So if they tell you that they don't work, they do. So we in Mexico, we do it ourselves because we don't want these cartel members going into our houses and robbing us or doing any of that, leaving dismembered body parts in our front step and all that. So a little more about how I grew up. I didn't go to school in Mexico. I was living in Mexico, but since I was an American citizen, I wasn't going to go there for two reasons. You have to pay the government a quota. And people, or at least kids my age, I was like 10, 12 at that age, they kidnap boys and then they send them to schools of terror. So these schools of terror, they're called escuelas de terror in Spanish, but they basically train you how to be a sicario. And they force you. And they tell you that if you don't work for them or you don't kill for them, that they're going to go for your family. If I have time, how are we doing on time, by the way?
You've got about 10 minutes, and then we'd also like to do a question and answer.
Okay. Yeah, we're fine. So some of the stories that I've heard, got a cousin that unfortunately had to go through one of these. And I mean, he's passed away now. He was murdered in cold blood. But what they do is that they'll kidnap you, and they're looking for 12, 10-year-old boys. And they send you to these schools. These are like in the center, like middle of Mexico. They're not in Juárez. But the very first day, what they do is that they have you kind of like strip naked. And then they have you stand, they give you a rifle. And we're not talking about a light rifle. They give you like heavy rifles. And they make you stand on, what are they called? Ant hills. And you can't move. If you make a sound like, oh, this is painful, normally, you know, that sound when you get burned and all that. Well, someone made that and they got shot right off the bat. It's not something I would ever wish on my worst enemy even. They force you to eat bodies. I don't know why they do this, but it's sort of like narco camp. They force you to sleep next to dead bodies. And they show you how to operate not just like a handgun, but we're talking about AK-47s, 50 calibers, grenades, RPGs, anything that you can really think of. They'll train you in how to use all kinds of short range and long range weapons. And then they'll release you back to where you were from. So if they kidnapped you in Juárez, then they sent you back to Juárez, and now you work for the cartel. And they'll give you like a walkie-talkie, and they'll be telling you instructions like, hey, we need you to kill this guy. And a lot of these, some of these, like, they don't really have a choice. They give them money as well, so they're gonna do it because they need money. It's really, like as you saw earlier, it's very, very, very poor town. So that's what happened to boys my age. At that time, I was like 10. So I had to wake up at 3 in the morning. I didn't want to go to school there. So I would wake up at 3 in the morning and I would travel 4 hours, cross the border legally because I'm an American citizen, and attend elementary school in America. That was every day, thanks to Obama, because Obama sent us back. But and I don't know, I guess I didn't rationalize how bad it was when I was a little kid, because I was a kid and I didn't understand these things. But now, I think and I reflect, this is what I did just to get an education in America. And it wasn't the best of an education. It was still a very poor area in America. But I thought it was heaven. We got free food in the mornings. And since we didn't have food to eat, we didn't have a lot of food to eat at home. I thought that was heaven. And that's what I looked up. That's what I looked forward to, eating and getting a good education in America. So that was me as an elementary school child. This is what the teens, that's just what happens to a lot of the teens. These are the guys that are, they're working for the cartels, and these are what you call halcones. It translates to hawks. So they're giving walkie-talkies, and they just let the cartels know if there's police, either military or police entity coming into the area. They're like, oh, there's a cop coming in, hide the drugs, hide the guns, whatever. Unfortunately, these are the ones that get in between the war on drugs. So a lot of these die eventually, and it's not pretty. But they offer them food, and they do it for food or money. And we're talking about mediocre, like 10 pesos, which is not even like $1. It's terrible what they pay you, but they'll have you risk for your life at this young age for that little money. So we're getting to the end. So with like all this rhetoric that I've seen lately, the reason I decided to leave the Democratic Party was because I was done with the mentality mindset, and I was done with not being, I guess, educated, because I never knew anything about policies. But once I started doing my research, I thought, you know what, if I actually put my mind to things, I could actually be really successful in America, thanks to capitalism. I always hear all these like liberals talking about like, oh, we're so oppressed and blah, blah, blah. They have this mentality that I just cannot have. Because I would say I was actually oppressed in Mexico, having to live through what I lived through. And so I just wasn't going to do it anymore. So I'm not going to buy I'm a Mexican and I'm oppressed and I can't be successful in America. So I just wanted to show you just a little evidence, not brag, but show you that just because I am a Mexican, just because I was raised in the most dangerous city in the world and saw the worst of humanity, here in America, everybody has the same shot to be successful if you work hard enough. So I guess some of my accomplishments is that despite all the things that I had to do just to get an education in America, I graduated as a salutatorian. So it's not quite number one top of my class, but it's number 2. So it's still something to be proud of. Out of 600, I'm currently studying aerospace engineering. So, and I'm also part of Barrett, the Honors College. I just recently, at the end of my freshman year, I landed a partnership with the Space Force. And so I'm gonna be doing research with them every summer. And that's gonna be research over satellites and missile systems. And that's gonna be in California, I should say. I'm not looking forward to the taxes, but hey, it's an opportunity I can't pass up. And so I'm also a tutor, and I go all around places giving talks to, you can see here, these people, 2 of these are from Vietnam, and the other 2 are from the Congo in Africa. So I talk to a lot of people, a lot of minorities, to give them the confidence, just because you're in America, just because you're a minority, despite what you hear, you can succeed if you just work hard. That's the beauty of America. So I say that America is simply great, and so let's keep America great. And with that, I just want to say thank you for hearing me out and putting out there that a lot of Latinos, including me, support our President Trump. So I say give him 4 more years. And that would open the floor to Q&A.
Yeah, we have time for 2 questions because we do have another speaker tonight. So I know Stefan wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see.
Oh no, I'm not. I was just asking if there's Q&A. I didn't really have one in mind. But if anyone else wants to go, you can go.
Okay, yeah. So if anybody wants to ask a question, go for it. I made it so that way you can unmute yourself this time. So just feel free to unmute yourself and talk.
Ask a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
And how do you say your name? Haber?
Evan?
Yeah. Thank you so much for your story. The thing I found frustrating is that what can we do to help alleviate the situation. And that's basically what I want to hear from you. Like, what's the solution? Thanks.
So I actually have a plan to help a little, and it's really hard to do that because you have to work with the Mexican government, and the Mexican government is basically trash. So what I think we can do, the best thing is education. If we educate the young people and let them know that even if they, despite them living in the most dangerous city in Mexico, if they try to go to college, they try to get us. Save up some money and go to college, get an education in Mexico even. In Mexico, it's really hard to be successful, but I mean, really, if you get a good education, then you don't have to kill people for money like a lot of my family members did. Something that I'm not proud of, but it's just a sad reality. We really, here in America, we really can't do much other than educate the Hispanics and the other Latinos that are here in America, and to blindly follow I'm going to listen to what media or TikTok tells me. And they don't really consider what actually goes on in Mexico. They're so ignorant as to what happens and what really happens. And they talk trash about America and all that. But really, if they went back to Mexico, they would appreciate what America was like. So if more people kind of like knew at least my story or what life is really like there, then maybe someone will come up with a good idea. Someone will say, hey, maybe we can get something together, donate to some of the places, just something like that. I think just education is our most powerful tool in terms of like fixing up the danger and all that exists over there in Mexico. But unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Suzanne, has Mexico just given up? Are they just letting these people run freely, or
Yes.
is this something they're helping you guys? I mean, it sounds pretty desperate.
Yeah, no, they're not doing anything, and you might think that Mexico might want to help the U.S. stop immigrants from coming in. There's some good immigrants. So there's some illegal immigrants that just really want a good life, but a lot of them are not there for just a good life. They're trying to wreak havoc, trying to get better routes. But the Mexican government does not do anything. If I have a confession, I guess. The federal police in Juarez, like the federal police, we call them federales. They are the most corrupt, the most despicable force that I've ever had to deal with. Just recently, like last year in December, locked up my mother for not giving them money. So when they pull you over, they expect you to give them money, and then they'll let you go. And if you don't pay them money, then they will take you. They'll put some unnecessary charge, like, oh, you were resisting, you were disturbing the peace. They'll make up something, and it's their word against you. So she was in a cold cell. It was 40 degrees outside. She was menstruating, and they didn't provide her with any hygiene products. They were in a cramped cell with a lot of women, and they were basically all crying. One of those was actually a reporter who was in there. Next thing I heard, she was decapitated, but she uncovered the corruptness of the government, the local government, and she was punished for it. So the government doesn't help. It's whatsoever. So it's literally all, we defend ourselves with what we have. So that's why I'm really big on guns. Like, I hope they don't take them away.
Real quick, how old did you say you lived there from what ages?
So I lived there like day to day. Like, I actually lived there for a whole year. But all my childhood, every year of my life, I would go there every weekend because I have family there, and we don't have an option. Like, we got to help them since we live in America. We have some money, so we would go every weekend to help them out. But I actually lived there like entirely for a year. Waking up at 3 a.m., going to school every day. That was luckily. I got lucky. Let me just say, I got lucky to be born in America. I got lucky to even have the opportunity to cross and get an education in America. So yeah, it was just an entire year, but it felt like an eternity, and it still haunts me till this day. So.
Oh, wow.
Did it happen recently with your mom? So, like, is she okay now? Like,
Yeah. She we joke about it now because, like I said, it's weird that it's our new normal, and it kind of sucks that it is. But we're joking about it now. She was really treated really badly. Stayed there for 2 days. It was hell for her, and it took her a while to talk about it. But now we are, and hope. Well, I mean, we don't want like revenge because we don't believe in that. We could get revenge. We can have someone go after them, but we're not like that. We don't believe in attacking violence with violence unless we're defending ourselves. Then yes, but no. Here we would just they told her to report it to a judge, but they laughed at her. So I don't know. Yeah, so she's fine now. We joke about it, so she's fine.
Okay, I was like, she's still there?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Heber, I got a question.
Yeah.
Last question.
You're from the El Paso Juarez region, as I understand.
Yeah.
Could you explain, or do you have any understanding in terms of explaining the Pachuco culture and its difference between, between the Mexicans and how they view, the American Mexicans or Mexican Americans, whatever you want to call it, and that particular area's importance, El Paso Juarez, to the Pachuco culture?
Yeah, so my mom was actually like a Pachuco. Like I guess like back in the day when she was like in her rebellious teen year, like early years. I mean, because she had us at a very early age. She was really rebellious. But she was really into like that Pachuco culture. And I mean, at least what I know from the Pachuco culture, at least the way it is in El Paso, it was back in the day. It was just basically like the gangsters, but it was really, I don't know, it was really interesting. They dressed in some fancy suits, but in terms of like the way that they felt and like their culture, those are the most racist people I've met. I'm not gonna lie. Most of them were like Mexican American and all that, but they were really racist towards like other like actual Americans, white people, or just some. I heard a lot of racism for like Central Americans, other Latinos. They would only tolerate Mexicans. But they really ran our block in El Paso, like a lot of Pachucos did. They had their fancy lowriders and all that. And what I mean by ran the streets is like they trafficked all the drugs in our streets. They took care of we're gonna be in charge of like selling the marijuana and like all that. And I mean they have like little codes that they live by, but I don't really know like super in deep because my mom had me stay away from them, which was smart. Because otherwise I probably would have a very different future, I guess you can say. But I don't see a lot of Pachuco like culture right now in El Paso. I haven't seen a lot of like Pachucos, at least the way that I remembered them, like the Cholos back in the day.
But are they you think they're running the whole, a lot of the drugs again still?
Oh yeah, that's how the Mexican the Juarez cartels. The advantage that they have is the Pachucos have a lot of houses. They have properties in El Paso, and since a lot of them are American citizens, they are the ones that cross the drugs themselves, and then they store them in the houses. So if you've seen like Sicario, like one of the movies Sicario, they have some of it takes place in El Paso, and like they raid a house, and there's like a bunch of drugs and bodies and all that. But I know there's a lot of places like that in El Paso that actually stores drugs, and so the Pachucos definitely do help out with the trafficking and all that. So
one last question onto that: do the Mexicans view Mexican Americans in a kind of that same like antagonistic way, like, oh, you're not really Mexican because you're from America?
Yeah, I get called all that all the time. Like, no, you're not Mexican. You're more American than anything. They reject you in their society. That's why I'm an easier target in Juarez and all that, because I look gringo, and they know I'm not purely Mexican. I'm American, but then Mexican culture. So yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for that presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank y'all for hearing me out.
Yeah,
giving
definitely.
me a voice.
So our next speaker is Suzanne Scher. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
Well, thanks for having me on. And boy, that was an interesting story. It's like, as you're talking, I have so many questions. I want to just keep going with you. So forget me. I'm just kidding. But it's interesting how, you're talking about the wall and how you're for it. It sounds like though a lot of people from Mexico, when they come up, they really don't want to assimilate to our culture, almost like they despise us. But anyway, so I was at a Latinos for Trump roundtable today, and it was absolutely fascinating to hear a lot of success stories from people down in Mexico and the common bond of what, you know, makes somebody an American. And I think it comes from not necessarily your skin color or anything like that. It comes from your values, your inner values. And that's why I was hoping that there's somebody in Mexico down there teaching people, reaching out to the kids, because as these people come over and want, you know, to come into America, it'd be great to bring them in and assimilate them and have them be Americans, because there's so many that have gotten their citizenship and it's the best day of their life. So, so I know you had me in to talk about school choice, which is a wonderful subject. And I'm kind of hoping to hear things from you guys too, as far as what's important, you know, being in the university. Because there's a lot of conversations about school choice, school funding, and the education system from kindergarten through 12th grade. But I feel like the universities and the colleges kind of get ignored as far as like in the back and forth between the Republican, Democrat, win a legislative seat conversations. I don't know if it's because it's a little separated. It seems to me it's a lot more complicated as far as, you know, being part of the economy around the universities and more privatized. But we truly have a major indoctrination system going on within our universities, and just kind of watching some of what you guys are going through with the other Republican club and seeing how that they're coming out against our president. It's really frightening, and the censorship that's happening at your newspaper. So to me, I'm very fascinated to hear your points of view. Sam Ward, who's on Team Trump, I don't know if some of you know her. She goes to ASU, and she was talking about how there's all this COVID money that wasn't returned and wasn't, you know, she wants to know where that went. Tuition's high. And, you know, we want to figure out how to help you. At least I want to figure out how to help you. So, you know, after, you know, I speak, and if you have questions, or I might have questions of you guys actually, but the thing that's really important about school choice starting young though is it's important for you guys, and maybe, you know, obviously you're past that, but our future generations, it's going to give them the armor, the strength, the knowledge to get in there and know what to expect from a good college, knowing they're being indoctrinated. You know, if you have that core education in there, and that's something that we got to take back from the unions. So by having school choice, parents can get in there and take the money and put it towards the school. That money should follow the child, not stay with the school. So that's why I'm very, very for school choice. That's one of the reasons. Kids should not be affected, their future should not be affected by the zip code that they grow up in. One of the other things I'm seeing as far as school choice is like parents also are left out of the loop a lot of times as far as curriculum. So they may not realize that one school is doing some things and another one isn't. So they don't realize that there's better options out there because they're not allowed to be a part of the discussion. I don't think a lot of people even know what some of the curriculum is that's, you know, happening there. So I guess the question to you guys, how many of you grew up in Arizona, and how many of you, are you Arizona?
I was born in California, but I've been living here since 2006. So yeah, I've been living my whole life here.
Okay. So are you getting,
I lived in California from 1991, the year I was born, day I was born, to the fall semester of 2014. So I grew up the majority of my life in California. I've only been in Arizona for 6 years.
Well, welcome. How was school in California?
I have a little bit of different experience because I went to public school for elementary. That was horrible, not for educational reasons, so I'm not going to mention like that stuff. But I was forced, operative word, to go to private Christian schools for junior high and high school. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are a lot of private schools that are great and better than public schools, but don't let the word private automatically make you think that it's going to be better than a public school.
Yeah, I agree.
Being forced, because me spending 8 years in private school, 2 for junior high, 4 for high school, I can tell you that that even in California, I still would have been better off in the public schools than I was in the private schools I was forced to go to.
Yeah, I was the public school brat in the family. And my younger siblings went to the private school. And they always wished that they got to go to the schools I did. But then again, my parents were able to pay for them to go to ASU. And when I was ready for college, they're like, hey, kid, here's Scottsdale Community College. So there's some good and bad there. I got to go to the private school, the public schools, but that's okay. So I'm just thinking, so Virginia, was school choice and everything a big deal in Virginia and California as well? I mean, are people waking up to understand how these curriculums, the national pictures, indoctrinating our children young?
Are you asking for Virginia?
Both, whoever wants to come,
You can
Virginia
go
and
first,
California.
Okay, I'll go. So in Virginia, I was ahead of, turn your audio on. In Virginia, I was ahead of the learning curve on all the classes, and they didn't have school choice, and they didn't have like classroom programs either. So the smarter kids got put in the back of the classroom and with self-guide packets without any school teaching in my school in Virginia, because they didn't have the resources to actually give proper schooling to all kids. So for that reason, it was bad. The lower functioning kids were sent to a lower functioning classroom, except they weren't taught in a lower functioning way. They were just sent there to get out of the way, the middle of the pack. And the higher functioning students were also just kicked out of the kicked to the back to get out of the way, the middle of the students. So it was pretty bad over there. It leaves off the extremities on both sides.
Yeah.
California, granted, I haven't been there, I haven't lived there for 6 years, but I've kept up with it enough through like friends and family that I have that still live there. And actually, some of my family are Republican and live in California. So that gives you, just to give you a smidge of hope for California, I know Republicans that are there and try to fight. So little bit of hope for my home state there. But school choice, definitely not a thing. To be honest, I don't even think it's been brought up by anyone in politics at all on either side of the aisle.
It's not very popular because that way schools have to compete for students, and then they're going to have to be transparent where the money goes. They're going to have to start performing better, and they're not a big fan of that. So they're trying to keep all that hush hush, which is the way the Democrats for so long have been able to steal elections, by saying they own the narrative. They care about the kids. They care about funding the schools, and yet the funding never gets all the way down to the teachers, to the classrooms. It's up there with all the administrators, and it's not spent properly. So that's why it's really important. As the next senator, I want to make sure that there's transparency where this money is going. I want to make sure that parents have a choice where they can send their child, so that they do have options. So Brittany, you said you were in Northern California. Is that the same as like Jill was saying? Same kind of story for you?
I know when I was in Northern California, I went to kindergarten in Arizona, but then I went to first grade in a public school in California. Was also basically put in a corner with I was like the resident smart kid in my class. So it was me in the corner by myself with everybody else just in the classroom. And then I transferred to a private school. Luckily, the private school I went to, I had a really good experience and it prepared me really well for high school. Was going to go to a private high school, but there was a lot of charter schools, private high schools, and public high schools in my area. So I probably had a bit different experience, and I moved down to Arizona ended up moving to Arizona for high school in 2016. but it seemed to be okay and getting slightly better from what I heard in the past couple years in the public school system, but I'm not really sure.
Well, it sounds like, Joseph, your story reflects a lot of what some of the school choice would be protecting, like kids who have special needs, like maybe the ones that are the slow learners. Their parents could send them to a school where there's better opportunities for them. Because what good does it do to send a child to school when they're sitting in a room being neglected? They don't grow, they don't learn, when there's probably a lot of hope for them. They're just being neglected. So that's something that school choice helps out too, is like the disparity in education. You want to close that achievement gap, and so parents know what's best for their child, so they can send them to the school that'll perform better for that particular issue or learning disability, or maybe the achievement, the child's off the charts, like some of you. So that's why it's another reason school choice is important.
Then also, you also have to think of it from the perspective of the actual schools themselves. Yeah, the whole thing of school choice is great, but the question is, how do you go about that? Because you see these teachers unions are giving millions of dollars in donations to Democrat candidates, and not only that, but not only that, excuse my language, the schools are shit. They're utter shit because you don't learn anything over there. I remember now ASU, to their credit, are really, really good, at least in the technical aspects. I'm sure Heber can attest to this, especially with like engineering or something or other. They're really transparent. It's really good in that sense, because as I tell other people, I learned more in just one semester of college than I've learned in 4 years of high school, because the level of rigor you're supposed to learn in college, it really is preparing you for what life is like and what's going to go on. Because over in college, not in college, high school, in high school, you're not learning anything productive or useful. Literally, I would spend less than maybe an hour a week studying, and I would be just fine. I would get straight A's. It wasn't even an issue whatsoever. But you never learn anything afterwards. You don't know how to, for example, do basic necessities like, say, pay your taxes, pay your bills, learn about health insurance. They never teach you any of that. It's just, give more funding to them. You didn't even teach us anything, yet you want more pay. Like this whole Red for Ed thing we had back in my junior year of high school in 2018. It's like, you want more pay, yet you get enough. You get paid leave right now, especially with this scam going on where that's forced us to be on the Zoom call. You get more free time because my mom is in an industry. She knows people who are teachers and stuff like that, who get extra free time, and you want more pay. I say, no, we don't need to give you more pay. We need to cut all of your pay and give it to the police instead. So that's one thing that you really have to keep in mind, is the schools themselves. They're not teaching you anything useful. You won't know how to navigate life through anything, how to buy insurance, how to choose which, your deductibles on your car, health insurance, whatever. But you will have seen, some propaganda film like Al Gore's movie and basically memorized it.
They're too busy indoctrinating to cover the basics of life. I see exactly what you're saying. So that's very cool. So I'm glad you guys see that. And also the fact of the matter is, Sylvia Allen, who was like chairman of the education committee, she's helping me with my campaign now and just kind of giving me some really interesting facts, and just talking about how the Democrats really are not the ones that were trying to do any of the funding. They voted no on a lot of it because they weren't getting what they needed for the unions. It's really not about the kids. And this is the message we have to get out as Republicans. They do not care about the kids. They are for this teachers union. They are for the control, they are for the finances, and they are for indoctrinating our children. They have their social justice programs, and that is their goal, is to get these in there. In the meantime, the kids can't read, they can't write, like you said, they can't write, balance a checkbook, but they're learning about, what is some of the things, deep equity and white privileges and Black Lives Matter nowadays, and it's quite frightening. So these are the things as Republicans we need to talk about and take that narrative back from the Democrats. They are not the party for our children. And that's really something that we have to hammer home because we've done a really bad job on it. And this whole Invested Ed initiative that's come out, again, that is backed by the Arizona Education Association, which is, of course, they have endorsed my opponent, Sean Bowie, who is, in our district LD 18. So it's just more the same thing. And I know ASU is pretty friendly with Sean since he is a professor there apparently for a couple classes. So that's some of the things we have to deal with as Republicans. Education seems to join them and praise them and endorse them, making them look like the education people. So now, as far as college, what could this state legislature do to help you guys with education? What are you feeling is going on? I know you're pretty isolated as far as you even have other Republicans fighting with you. How can we help? How can lawmakers help?
I have actually quite a bit of solution for this. I don't think necessarily it would be law that would help, because it's not at the university level. It's not really about, just getting involved with it. Yeah, you can, but I think the much more easier solution. Thanks, Benny. In the chat, whatever. The thing that would be much more effective, I think, in trying to do this is when you look at what is currently going on is with high schools and with schools in particular, it's too much of a cookie-cutter model where it's based on the assumption you're going to go to college afterwards. But the truth of the matter is that not everyone should go to college, and not everyone really is
correct
for it. I think that we need to go back to a time where, with college especially, we need to go back to a time where it's less accessible, where it's only for like the really high achieving people. And even then, for those people, it should be a very limited amount, because people think even to this day, oh, college is like the end all be all to, success in life. When the truth is, no, it's hard work, it's determination, it's consistency. If you don't have any of that, even in, a technical major, as I found out very, clearly, very, very much so, you're not going to succeed no matter what you do. So it's all about what you do, like your actual work ethic. But then once you establish that, get into, what we should be doing is promoting, people go into these other majors like engineering, pre-med, or something like that. But then for everyone else, today we've created a situation, even I disagree with them very much. So Pete Buttigieg, the Democrat, was one of the few ones. I'm not gonna quote it exactly. I'll just paraphrase. He says, as a progressive, I don't feel it's right to subsidize a minority of people who do go to college at the expense of the majority who don't. And he's 100% right in that case, where we've created a situation now where there's an overabundance with people with, degrees like gender studies, women's studies, stuff like that. But there's a shortage of people doing blue collar jobs like truck driving, for example, which my dad's in that industry. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. As for the schools, I think it's just a matter of, like Heber said previously when he spoke, just education. Tell these people from, you could ask around, all that kind of stuff. Just education, telling people you are not going to learn anything useful with your own just high school, because they don't prepare you for anything. And college, obviously, it's coming out more and more so, thanks to the media, thanks to all these other like Fox News, other media outlets, whatever, and even alternative media. It's becoming more and more popular. So legislature, I don't think is the way to go. I think it's just more of a societal type of thing, because government, as we all know, sucks at everything. So what we should be doing is just encouraging people, hey, okay, go to college only if you're going to actually make something of it. But then for the rest of you, go get a blue collar job that's actually going to be more beneficial to you than, wasting tens of thousands of dollars, because college is expensive. As we all know, college is expensive, really, really expensive. And it's a total scam, especially with book prices and stuff like that. So
kind of what I'm hearing you say is, what if we really crack down on how high schools teach? Get rid of the garbage classes, really shore up the education in there, and then provide trade schools. Back, years before college was so, stressed upon, which could be just a great big money making machine. Just take the kids' tuition, churn them out, they're in debt forever and they can't find a job. So instead of doing that, get them into a technical school, a trade school, and train them in these blue collar jobs to where they can make a good living and not be in debt forever. But they've had
Yeah,
their really good solid education in high school. And then from there you kind of go your different ways instead of saying, oh, everybody has to go to college and then everybody's in debt and nobody can find work.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing with the high schools themselves, because today, you know, college is not the only, it might have been before when there was less options, but now in the 21st century, thanks to, you know, mass media, thanks to the internet, thanks to other outlets like that, there are so many other options that you can do that don't require college that'll pay you really, really well as well. So you don't necessarily even need with the high schools themselves because of technology. I think it's the old models, because the model that we currently have is really, really outdated, especially going back to, you know, neocon Bush, for example, No Child Left Behind, which we see, you know, today. Like I'm it seems I'm talking more than you, sorry, but
I'm learning from you. I like to hear what you folks are saying.
yeah, so that's one thing with where not that all high school teachers are garbage. I've met some phenomenal ones. I mean, I've had what, 3, 4 really, really influential people in my, you know, career in the STEM field and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed some classes in high school. I'm not going to say that. So there are really good ones. I think though that those people, especially when you how forced to teach, because you're learning the curriculum for what, like for like 3 months, and then all of a sudden you pause the whole thing and now you teach to the test for the final for some arbitrary, you know, last time when I took it was AZ merit. Last time I last finished with what was it, I don't think it was AIDS or something something like that. It was like some kind of other standardized testing that they wanted to see to compare state by state. And then even in California, like some of you have gone to California, it has teachers are the highest paid in the whole nation, but students rank 49th in reading over there, which tells you just how much these teachers unions do not care. Ames was replaced by AZ merit, which they don't even teach you anything that you're actually going to use. They're just teaching to the test to take, and then you're limited to the lowest performing person, whereas, you know, the smarter people do not get higher marks for achieving better. And even in high school, the minimum you need to do just to pass is a D in all your classes, and you're going to pass fine. Whereas later on, I think that it's caused a generation of kids to be idiots, total idiots, because we don't actually know what you actually have to put in life. And that's what I've seen in college, especially to ASU's credit, provided I'm also in a technical field, is that you're really going to be better off doing that because you're held at such a, well, slightly higher. You need a C at minimum, but it's difficult, especially if you transition from high school to college. So for that sense, yes, you should go. I think we should put more emphasis on trade for the vast majority of people who aren't going to go to college, because we see other countries that actually put that. Obviously we don't like to necessarily look to Europe for a model, but even in Germany, for example, where they do emphasize a lot more so with trade schools for people who aren't, you know, gonna be in, say, science or something like that. And for the people who are, that's great. We should, you know, encourage people to go to, you know, college for sciences and math and stuff like that. But everybody else, if you're not going to do something like that, just go get like you said, I am very much advocating, go get a blue collar job, like in something like truckers or welders or something like that. There's a big shortage of those kinds of jobs that can actually be very profitable if you know, work hard and you're consistent and you do everything, you know.
That's awesome.
I mostly agree with you, Stefan, although I'm going to make one slight disagreement, just tiny. I don't think that there's nothing the legislature can do for universities.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that it would be better off socially if we did that.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, Julie, you can, you know, obviously attest to this, but like, you know, one of the times, when we had issues with ASU, Julie talked to Kelly Townsend. And when ASU knew that Kelly Townsend, part of the legislature, was watching them, ASU backed off and gave us more freedom. So obviously the legislature can help.
Yeah. I think Benny wanted to talk too.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Oh yeah, no, I just wanted to say that I'm from Illinois, like the most corrupt state in the whole country. And I mean, it's bad. I could not stay there. It was in high school. First of all, you didn't have the choice for public school or private school. We had one private school I lived in the capital, Springfield. So we had like one private school, which was Sacred Heart Griffin, and the rest were public schools. And tuition there was like, it's probably up this year to $20,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
And it's absurd, but of course it's Illinois, so I wouldn't expect anything less. But it's so declining, and it is completely ran off of Democrats. And in high school they teach you to be in this box, and they want you to be this certain way, and I didn't fit into the box because I didn't have the same beliefs, and they basically shun you for it. And it's just sick, and that's really all I wanted to say. But it's
and that's what we got to make sure doesn't happen, because that's what Democrats want to see happen here. These unions are powerful, and that's their whole goal, is to take it over, fund their candidates through the money that they're raising off them, and they really don't care about getting a whole lot of that money into the classrooms. I mean, why is it we passed that 20 by 20 bill? They got the raises they want, and they're still not happy. And the teachers, we're still saying they had to bring in their own supplies. It's because they're not getting the money. It's getting all stuck in the administrators, and all those people up top.
Have you ever been told you look like Kimberly? Well, I don't know how to say her last name. She's on Trump's campaign. She's on his
Kimberly Guilfoyle?
Yes, your blonde version of her.
I know.
Literally.
That's funny.
Wasn't she the one with the Groypers who's like shamed him for not being able to find a date? Is that the one?
I don't think so. Maybe.
No, she's dating Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah, she was with Trump
I'm
Jr.
not that lucky though, so
We all wish.
I know. Darn. Too bad he doesn't like blondes. Maybe I'd have a chance. Okay, so any questions for me? I mean, I'm sitting there asking you guys the questions, but when you're in college and I'm talking about school choice, I know you're kind of beyond that portion, but it's kind of nice to know how it affected you in your younger years and got you to where you are. So I do appreciate hearing and what I could do for colleges, because I know, like I was telling you, Sam was telling me how expensive it is and how she spent $3,000 on a class for distance learning where she didn't even get all the classes. Are you hearing that you're going to be opening up everything soon, or how is that going with the COVID?
No.
They are saying that we're almost in phase 4 and that everybody's going to get sent home.
Yeah.
That's what's going around.
Right now. And
they act like everything is perfectly fine and the ASU is thriving. Well, it's not. And they just want to cover it up and act like everything's fine. They don't want to, like, it's just like the media. They don't want to tell us anything. They don't want to actually be truthful about anything. Yeah. Ever. I just kind of went off. Sorry. It really pisses me off really bad.
I want to hear this.
No,
so phase 4, they're thinking more outbreaks. Is that why they're doing the contact tracing and kind of?
Yeah, so they think that people are lying about their daily health checks because the cases are tripling every single week. I don't even know.
But then again, it's like with the hospitals. They said that they were overflowing, but no. In New York, there were entire unused parking lots, and they'll say like they say, if you break your leg, for example, and go to the hospital, you're going to be hospitalized for COVID. They're going to say, and if you die from a heart attack but test positive for COVID, you died from COVID, not the heart attack itself. That's what they do. It's like the media. They want to just view whore pretty much, and not only with. They profit off of this. Like Michael Crow, for example, is close to I think he's like close to a billionaire or something like that, right?
Oh yeah,
What?
Yeah, Michael Krogh. He's close to a billionaire.
Are
Benny,
you serious?
yes,
Something like
Benny.
that. Yeah.
He's telling the truth. He is like insane rich. Okay, like he has his pockets like the as deep as you think they go. I promise
So
they
yeah,
go.
For the
That's
last 4 years, he's given like $500,000 to Chelsea, Bill, Hillary Clinton for the Clinton Foundation. Like he's invited them over and they're like $500,000 here, $500,000 there, whatever. I don't care.
Going to Epstein's Island.
Yeah.
If you guys have questions, you don't need to raise your hand. You can just unmute yourself and then talk.
I am blown away right now. So he supports. Oh my
Your
God.
reaction.
It's literally ran. The ASU is completely ran by liberal.
Oh yeah. But like I said, to their credit, the overwhelming majority of the liberal professors I've had, yes, I met some full-on like communist Marxist sympathizer. It was one of them, my history professor, who said, it was hilarious. He's talking to us about like race and how it's okay, but then he asked all of a sudden, oh, do white nationalists consider Jews white? Are they white? And then I jokingly said to him, no, because anti-Semitism is a real thing and you can't be racist to white people, so no. But that's one thing that they just keep telling you nonsense about. But thankfully he wasn't like too bad about that. He was fairly open to, hearing about my own views and stuff like that. He wasn't too big of a, too bad with that. And even then, if you're, like I said, if you're in a technical major, this political stuff, you can't really politicize stuff. It's just like, there's other ways you can do some things like building circuits or, making or programming computers, but not really like much nothing really
In law. So I'm majoring in global management pre-law, and it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can have some here or there, that's why also they added it to the curriculum in other universities. I don't know about ASU specifically. I don't want to put ill motives to them that are unfair, obviously. But what I know from a lot of universities is they've added critical race theory like requirements in other fields, for example. So what I think should be done, at least with that, is look, it's just where the money is. Okay, if we say to people, hey, look, you're not necessarily gonna go to university and become rich. You're gonna be that way if you're really hardworking. But what you should realize is that it's insanely expensive, number one, and most of like 99.9% of the majors that are at university, you're not really going to use that much. It's mainly for, like I said, for STEM majors, law, athletes, although that's because they're getting paid. It's not necessarily because they not getting paid, but their tuition is pretty much covered. Like my friend who plays football for ASU, his tuition is completely covered. So there are some people, but it's a very, very, very tiny minority of people who are. And for those other technical majors, it's not like you need to be like genius, but you do need to have some kind of minimum requirements, and not everyone can do them. So it really depends on what you are looking at in that case. So yeah, legislature, you can do something here or there, but even before you're going to have a much difficult what will I say? Yeah, you're going to have a very difficult time trying to bring any reform yourself. I know you might not necessarily think, oh, I'm going to do this and that, because you're just one part in a big game, right? But even before, people have tried to bring accountability, but these teachers unions, because they're so powerful, have stood in the way, and there's nothing really that has been able to be done. So I think just through innovation and, basic stuff like voting, and not voting on, policies that are actually against your own values, is the way to go. And for all of us, because we have the numbers. So just voting for Republican candidates and making sure you vote based off of what is closest to your values. It's really nothing that new that you can do. You just got to keep doing that even more and sort of kind of spreading the word. That's all you really can do.
Absolutely. So, did I see
Can
it?
I say something?
Yeah.
Ms. Sean, Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us. Real quick, are you actually part of the legislature now, or are you just running?
No, I'm running. I am. My opponent is Sean Bowie. He's had
Okay.
2 terms, and he will not get a third if I have my way.
Right. Well, somebody made a cynical comment about government not really being able to do much, and as somebody who is a conservative, in fact, I was a libertarian at one point, but I've actually swung a little bit more to the left on that. But I do think that the role of government is essentially to limit, put limits of, to kind of make society more equitable, And what I'm seeing on these campuses, I'm an online student, and one of the reasons I decided to get plugged into a Republican student body was so that my voice could be heard. I actually live in Austin, in Texas, and they had, what really bothered me. They had over the summer they have like a museum or something there on campus where they were pushing this pro-communist agenda. They were hyping up this woman that was a communist who actually went to China and worked with Mao. And there's like an exhibit on ASU. And I'm like, why the hell is this being promoted? And there's this push for communism and socialism, this critical race theory crap. And it's really a religion. So somehow we've got to work within the law to somehow use what we have at our disposal to go like separation of church and state, or get more conservative voices in here to balance it out, because they just have too much power, right? And as you've been pointing out, and everyone else, we've been indoctrinated for generations, of this leftist socialist crap. And, as a formal liberal progressive who woke up to this, and you start realizing, man, like the guy from Mexico shared earlier, I mean, we have so much power as people, and the beauty of like the Second Amendment, is like this rugged individualism that's just ingrained in our Constitution. And we need to teach people this. Like, this is a beautiful thing that we have, right?
Amen.
But it's been, but it's, I guess the thing that bothers me the most is like the genie's out of the bottle. How do we put it back in? And like we're all finally waking up to this, and it's like doing, they're screaming revolution in the streets. You know what I mean? It's like, what, is it too late? Is it going to come to civil war? Is that, I don't know. And I know I'm not the only one that's worried about that. But the thing I've been struggling with, and I just want to say this, is like, it's such a multifaceted, large issue. I don't know how to address it in like a very succinct 2-sentence thing. You know what I mean? There's just so many issues that we have with it. But I think the ultimate thing for what you can do is somehow put limits on all this crap. Because that's what I see ultimately the function of government. We got to put limits on this. And that's my 2 cents. So that's it. Thank you.
Oh no, that was really interesting because what you're talking about. When I was a kid growing up, my parents were involved in the Barry Goldwater campaign, and they were very active, and they talked politics all the time. And so I would hear them talk about the Communist Manifesto, and this is what's happening right now. And after when I got to my teens, I'd hear them talk about the schools and how part of the communist goal was to infiltrate the media, infiltrate the schools, and and the churches. And I'd sit there and I'd roll my eyes, go, there's nothing wrong with the schools. And so they put my siblings in private school. I squeaked through public, so they call me the public school brat, and I survived, so I'm fine. But they saw it happening, and they told me about it. So they tried to get my kids into private school and talked me into it. My kids didn't want any part of it. They wanted to go to public school. So they went through the Kyrene School District here, and they did get into some trouble. I mean, my oldest son, he got into, the drug scene and stuff like that, but my other ones are just fine. So there's pros and cons, but we were warned early on. So they've had multiple generations now to infiltrate our schools, and the highest levels are the universities, where that's their prize. They talked about that being their crown jewel. If they could get academia and get into, basically they talk about like open mind, insert their doctrine, so it's like kids don't know it. So they come out. My son's friend, he went in through a university in Colorado. I'm not sure what it was called, but he was the nicest kid. And all of a sudden he graduated and he started attacking me on my Facebook page. I mean, my friends and I were just calling us racist and Trump chimpanzees and all that stuff. And,
Chimpanzees.
yeah, because he thought he knew everything now. And we were just stupid hillbillies because we were conservatives, and he was enlightened by all this academia now. So it was really sad for me because I witnessed it firsthand from my son's best friend, and like he was like a son to me growing up. But my parents were talking about it back when I was really small, and they saw it happening. And a lot of people thought they're crazy. Okay, and even like I said, even I was like, oh gosh, not this again. But it happened. So those goals have come down. So you're right. I don't know if we can reverse that, but we've got to try. I think one of the main, good for you guys. I mean, you're fighting for your First Amendment. Sounds like your radio station, your blogs, whatever you can do to get the word out. And I know it's not going to be easy because you're in liberal land right there. And, I feel for you guys big time. That's why I want to support you, and I want to hear from you. And I need to know what you need to get your voice out there, because I think that's what we got to do. We got to just be like, President Trump. He came in, and I don't know about you guys, but I was getting so frustrated because, like Bush and everything, we're going, what is wrong? They're not speaking out for us. They're not standing up for us. They're just getting rolled over. Well, now we know why, don't we? I mean, they were all part of it together. Trump's this outsider who came in and started fighting for us. Like dad comes along and says, you ain't going to touch my kid. And he's like dad fighting for us. Well, we got to be like that now. We got to be like that for our future generation. We got to be the dad, the mom saying, no, not now, not on my watch, which is how I feel about it. And they're coming after you guys. They're coming after the little ones. I have a little grandson, and I'll be darned if I want to see him get indoctrinated like that. Not going to happen. I'm not going to let it happen. So if it comes from just educating people, I like I said, I don't think people know what education's doing, because for too long, the Democrats come across like, yeah, we're the education people. We own that. We care about the kids. The Republicans are so mean. They want to hold back money from the teachers and the kids. Well, that's crap. We don't. We want to make sure it gets to the teachers and gets to the kids instead of in the hands of these, communist indoctrinators. So that's kind of my little response to you. But you're right on the money, Sean. I mean, it's out there, and we got to figure out how to pull it back in. And if I can limit it, I will. And that's kind of what I want to hear. What's happening to you guys on campus? What do you need to speak out? Who do you need to have come fight with you?
Well, yeah, go ahead, Rick.
No, just that I hear rumors that there's planned protests on campus to keep Michael Crow on his toes, and I think that's just what we need. We need the pressure from the outside groups. We need the legislature doing their job, holding them accountable, threatening to pull their purse strings if they step out of line. And without even having to pull the trigger against ASU, just the threat alone, I think, would cause a lot of the reforms that are needed. But unfortunately, not enough people like yourself, people are like you who are like speaking out against ASU. We need more of you. So my question to you actually is, what can we do to help you get elected? Like, what do you need on the ground for LD18?
People, if you want to go door knocking, if you want to spread the word about me, if you want to help me put out, I don't have the big signs, but they're all out, but I have a lot of the little yard signs. If you know people that want to put them in their yard, let me know, because they're like good advertising. People actually see them. If anybody wants to do like a little coffee or fundraiser, what I'm doing is now I'm really focusing on some social media, trying to do a big social media push, digital. So if any of you follow me on Facebook or Twitter, just help me push my stuff out. I'm going to get very bold against the Democrats here shortly. And because you know what? It's that time. I mean, it's going to go one way or the other, and it better go our way, because I think we're in a really bad spot. And if they win and we lose the state to to flip it blue, which is what they're working hard to do, I think we're going to be in a world of hurt, because people like Sean Boy, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. There's so you know about Act Blue through Black Lives Matter, right? Their fundraising arm. Act Blue is a fundraising arm. So Black Lives Matter funnels money over to Act Blue, which gives it to candidates. And Act Blue is sending money to something called the Sister District Project. And this is somebody that they recruit and groom candidates to flip states. And Arizona is one of their states. So there's several candidates that they've picked to go after Walt Blackman. They support Sean Bowie. They probably didn't take me very seriously at first because they felt he was pretty entrenched, but I hear polling numbers came out, so it's a race. You know, I'm in the running here, so I'm excited. So I want to take him down. But and then there's another one besides Walt Blackman up north. French is her name. She's going against Wendy Rogers. So there's 3 sister districts, and that's out of San Francisco. And they came down and they, knocked doors for Sean, and they fundraised and using Black Lives Matter money, but nobody knows this stuff. And these guys are very progressive, and the whole thing is like Kristen Sinema used, and it's what Mark Kelly's using, and it's what Sean Bowie uses. It's what they use. Oh, we're independent. We are independent like Arizona. We're going to be bipartisan. And they are until they get the majority, and then they're not. And then you're going to see a very radical agenda come into play. I mean, Sean Bowie, he wrote 2 red flag laws. He was co-sponsoring 2 red flag laws that, fortunately didn't get anywhere yet, and COVID-19 shut it down, and he voted to run home and hide. So that never went anywhere, but you can be sure that that's going to come back up.
Dan Crenshaw. Dan Crenshaw with the red flag laws.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, he, Daniel McCarthy, he was going after those too. But I mean, Ducey really surprised me. That's where I think there's some cronyism, like with Crow and then Ducey. I think there's some things behind the scenes there that really, true Republican candidates need to get in there and expose, because the state's kind of been McCained. And you never know who's on which side of things, so to speak, if you know what I mean.
Well, even with Donald Trump, I think, as much as I support him over Biden or any of the Democrats, for sure, even he, I'm not, I mean, we're not, arrogant, naive enough to think that, he's, for us, I think we know that he's kind of full of it himself, but he's doing a lot better than any of these other Republicans have as well. I don't think, though, that, I mean, he's only got 4 more years, right? Who are we going to have after that? What's the Republican Party going to be like? And especially how they want to turn the state blue. They're slowly starting to do that, especially with demographics, where we have massive amounts of immigrants coming in who overwhelmingly vote Democrat. But like I said, for other things, we're working to try to end immigration, at least temporarily, for a small period of time, not necessarily permanently, but even when we open up immigration again, I think it should be much smaller numbers, like maybe 1,000 a year, maybe, if that, 10,000 at most. But that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind, is that numbers matter and demographics are a big thing, which if we don't have enough people coming in with, Republican right-wing views or whatever else, we're not going to be able to win no matter what we do. So all this stuff happening right now, yes, just vote, really. But then we were kind of going off a bit off topic, but yeah, with the school choice, it's good in theory, but we just have to, push for it by voting, by just spreading the word. And then, like Sean even said earlier, how I'm not saying that legislature can't do anything whatsoever. That's not what I'm saying. Of course they can. I just don't think that the threat, it's more, bark than anything else. It's not going to cause them to do anything, because, we yell at them to, okay, you're going to do this or we're going to cut your funding. It's like, yeah, that's cute. But then they group together like crazy. We see full-blown communists in our own government, with AOC, Bernie Sanders, Rashida Tlaib, all those people who are pro-communist, who are anti-American, who hate this country, hate our values, all this kind of stuff. So you just gotta, the people ultimately are the ones who, if anything, we're gonna make the change. Just regular college students, teachers who are against the teachers unions need to start speaking up more and more so. And with technology and the advent of technology, and especially with this COVID, how everything's had to switch, there'd be another revolution from the outside. This model just won't be able to compete with, rising technology. It'd be like, for example, trying to have a car from the 1920s compete with, say, I don't know, some kind of fancy Tesla or something like that. There's no comparison. And that's what we're in today, where we have a very outdated system that doesn't work for everybody. It's too much of a one size fits all kind of thing, and especially for young children, where we're forcing them to sit in a classroom all day long, learning boring things like counting or this and that, and where you see a lot of, especially boys, girls is maybe less so. I mean, I'm sure there's examples of it, because there's an exception to every rule, but in general, more and more boys are starting to be treated for ADHD because they can't sit through a boring class of their teacher, teaching them how, like this, promoting, abortion, contraception, no fault divorce when it's convenient, all this kind of stuff, not telling that, and, indoctrinating them into believing ridiculous nonsense like this country is racist, or that they're somehow racist because they're white, or that they don't know what kids are coming home screaming they don't know what gender they are. Like, what the hell? You're teaching us this nonsense that we're then, and we're raising a generation of kids, my generation, even before, to be complete idiots, where we don't know what, we're going to do later.
That shouldn't be in the classroom. That needs to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, did I talk too long, Julie?
No, you're right on time.
Oh, good. Okay.
If anything, I did.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I was really excited to come on here because I wanted to hear from you guys. I mean, I can talk about school choice and I can talk about some things, but what I really need to learn is from what's happening in your schools. And I mean, if you stay in touch with me, and I would love to know what kind of problems you have, because you guys are really on the front line.
Yeah.
ASU is tough. And another thing you can do is, if you you probably have school and everything now, but there's also like the PCs, precinct committee person. You can become one of those, and that's very grassroots too, because you can help select your candidates. You can go in there and become first vice chair, second vice chair, and you get a lot of good feel for meeting people and becoming a candidate. So if you want to get more involved, get involved at that level too, because we need younger people. And I'm seeing that when younger people get involved, there's more energy, more people want to be involved, and it just makes a really nice synergy. So
if you're interested in becoming a precinct committeeman, you can reach out to me or Rick. We're both precinct committeemen, so we can get you hooked up with that.
Yeah, it's great. We would love you guys to be precinct committeemen.
We're gonna have a meeting in the future with Dan Schultz. He's the one that recruited me for LD18. But he can explain to all of you exactly what a PC is, what it does, the role, and how it relates to the Republican Party. And I encourage everyone needs to become a PC, even if you only go to a handful of meetings throughout the year. Still become one.
Yeah, Dan's great. That would be a good meeting, actually. He's a good guy.
Yeah, we have him every semester just to recruit all the new people. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. He's busy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good for him. Yeah, he's great.
Okay, I'm probably gonna sound stupid for asking this question, but where is LD18?
So that is all of Ahwatukee, South Tempe, West Chandler, and a little bit of Northwest Mesa. So it's just a weird district. It's a weird shape, but it's a little bit of like all those, but all of Ahwatukee.
Okay. Sorry, the only legislative district that I know is the one I live in. So, and it's not 18.
You're 26, right?
Yeah, I'm 26. So
well, you can still help push my information out. And I think Ray Michaels is running for Senate in your district. He's a good guy. So
because like my current ones are Blanc, Solomon, and Mendez. Although they're kind of switching around now. Like one of them's terming out, one of them's running for Senate. I think it's like Blanc running for Senate where she was House of Representatives, and then I don't know what's going on. It's this weird thing. And then there's someone totally completely new running for House of Representatives. I don't even remember what her name is. I just know she is Democrat.
Oh. Get you in there, get a PC, and then you start running for office.
Okay, well, we're not. No, we are not starting. We are not.
You've been drafted.
Yep.
We're not the first person to tell me
It's a scary proposition. Let me tell you, I know when Jill Norgard recruited me, I had to think about it for like a month.
I don't have the mental or like capacity for that. I would just end up yelling at people and raging at people because I get too impatient. It just wouldn't
I got a text me, and when I was blogging at KFYI, people generally like you because it's pretty conservative, but when I went over and blogged at KTR for a while, oh my gosh, those people were brutal. But then you get the conservative people fighting the very liberal people, and oh yikes. So you get a thick skin after a while, so now it's like whatever. So
Well,
I'm reading the notes here.
I know somebody said Jill 2024.
There you go.
Okay, Sean. I see you posted that. I see it. No, you could not bribe me enough to deal with that. I already have a thick skin. My problem is I just wouldn't be able to handle the dum-dums. I feel like there's just too many dum-dums that I'd have to deal with.
You could be the female Trump.
I already have to deal with dum-dums in my life already. So
no pressure. A little bit away, so you got time to think about it.
What did you start? I killed this, and then you brought it back up again. I killed this a while ago.
Oh, that's funny.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for coming, even though it's still online. Sorry about that. We are going to be moving in person next week, so I look forward to seeing everybody there. Should be interesting. We'll see if ASU flags me down for breaking some unknown rule. So
you had that crazy blonde QAnon person on there. Are you seeing that stuff on Twitter, Julie?
No, honestly, I try to look away from the Twitter after it blew up when we saw the Kyle stuff. So
yeah, I know. Twitter's a cesspool, but
oh yeah. But
thanks for having me on, everybody.
Yeah, certainly. I wish you the best of luck, and we'll certainly help you.
Thank you for coming.
So
you're very welcome. Well, I wish you all the best.